Hello and welcome, family, to another episode of Ask Dr. Mumbi. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all family, your ways, and that you're moving into living life very much on your own terms, in your own narrative, and out of this matrix. We're back, family. We had literally been summoned by Mwene Nyaga, Mwene Hinya, Gaiwakere Nyaga, the most high creator to Mount Zion. And, we were also summoned to our shrine, which is almost done. It's so exciting. And just being there and feeling the kind of elevated spiritual energy was totally transformational. That healing energy getting revitalized. You'd say it felt like my batteries were charged up, and then the Most High sent me and my team on a little spiritual mission. So what I got out of that experience, family, is stop being too much in the metaverse. And I'm literally saying now the metaverse is the internet, social media, TV, tablets. Don't be too much in that world, because you're missing out on so much more that is happening out there. But those are stories for other days. Special shout out, of course, to our Patreon family. Thank you so much, family, for supporting us on that platform. If you'd like to receive, exclusive content every day from us, definitely consider joining for as little as $5 a month for the content. And you can also join just to donate to the channel for $2 a month. And you can also send us a love donation through PayPal. A lot of you, family, have been asking me lately, especially as chosen ones, and especially since I started the Unity communities. Basically, the Unity communities are communities of highly conscious, evolved beings in every nation, people of like mind, let's put it like that, people who are spiritual, people who have been on this journey and, of awakening themselves, and now, kind of bringing those people together. So if you'd like to join, you can always send me an email and I'll send you the form to fill out. But I've been getting a lot of questions from you guys about friendship and about, now you want to emerge, you don't want to be isolated, you want to be in a community, you want to be in a relationship, you want friends, you want, family, all these things. You want to meet your soul family. And the one thing, you've been asking me, how do you go about it? What advice would I give? Especially because some of you have been on this awakening journey alone for quite a couple of years, be it 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, some of us 10, 15 years. And one thing I would say is not so fast, family. I think it's very important to really take your time and see yourself clearly as the person you've become. Because, Spirit, the Most High, is not concerned about your earthly relationships. The only thing the Spirit is concerned with is your ascension, is your transformation, is your healing, is your restoration. And so whenever, if you rush the process of getting into groups or communities or friendships, etc., the first thing that will happen is everyone's triggers will kind of bubble to the surface, and we'll see. And some people in the group may not be triggered. They may be totally in a different space, they're healed, whatever. And yet there's others who maybe you guys will trigger one another. And, so it's the first advice I'd give is make sure, family, that you have healed as much as possible and that you're continuously healing. And what healing is it's a mental thing. It's coming to terms with everything that's happened to you, seeing how you used to act or the behavior patterns that were created from that experience, the kind of toxic traits that you kind of picked up from your traumatic experiences, defensive traits, etc., traits that are less than who you are. Those are the things that are going to be triggered, family. So if you used to be irritated at a certain thing, or you couldn't stand certain things, then when you get into the group, the first thing your spiritual team will do is to test you to see, is that irritability still there? And it's also to also shine a light on you, to show you where you really are. Because sometimes we can think we're more healed than we are. Sometimes we can think we're less healed than we are. Sometimes we can think we haven't really made gigantic steps, or we've just been like stuck in the mud trying to get out of our old mentalities and stuff. And sometimes we've already surpassed that, but we don't see it because we've remained in the same environment of our healing. So the first advice I would give as you're moving out into communities is really study yourself. Please look at the video I did on that. Self-awareness, family. Look at where you're at. And even as you move into new relationships, because we are entering a season where soul families are coming together, where communities are coming together. Even as you move into that family, always have a sense of self-awareness. Because at the end, it's your universe and your experience. It's about you, family, your own universe. I have to release that book. And this will help you to really be aware of whether these are the people, whether this is the community for you, whether these are the people for you or not. And also just where you're at on your evolutionary journey. And you have to keep that, that self-awareness at the center of your operation from now on. So even if you meet others, the first relationship that you have, and that remains the most critical, is the relationship you have with yourself. So always make sure that that is the priority. Regardless of whether you get married, you have children, whatever the situation may be, make sure your relationship with yourself is your priority, that you're constantly aware of how you are feeling, so that you don't fall out of balance, and then that will have a ripple effect on all your relationships, your communities, your friendships, everything, your family. So moving forward, make sure that you are at the center of your life. That's the first advice I'd give you. Second thing I'd recommend highly, family, is that you pay attention and really listen to what people are telling you. Because it's almost like you haven't been on the dating scene for a while, and now you're going, and now you're going on a couple of dates with people. That's how it's going to be with friendships now. It's like you're kind of not testing each other really, but you're kind of seeing if you're compatible. So there's groups where you'll be so attracted to certain people, you'll be so attracted to a certain person because you're awakening, they're awakening, so you can share your awakening war stories. You can have all this, it's such a relief to be around people who are awakening or awakened, because finally you feel understood. But what I would say is really listen to what they are saying, to what they are narrating, and to who they are telling you they are, family. Because some awakening people are supposed to just be acquaintances. Of course, we need each other, for sure, to raise the vibration, to shift, events, to shift people's timelines, etc., to heal one another, because there is kind of an acceleration of spirit when we come together as awakening ones or as awakened ones. It does create this environment where there's an acceleration in each and every one of us with our, particular journey or particular course. And that is a power. That's why I wanted to create Unity Communities Family. And I am going to do it. But this is one of the reasons I'm slowly getting into it, because I've been listening to the messages that I've been receiving from hundreds of people, family. I think now we're at like 1,200 across the world, which is huge. And they keep adding up. And some people really are in a good place of self-understanding, self-overstanding, etc. And they're really, they're ready for a community, but others are still unhealed in one dimension or another, and they're kind of needy. They're needing a group. They're needing people. And I keep thinking that's what leads me to point number 3. Make sure that you're not going into this situation like you really need a friendship, a relationship, a soul family, like you're desperate for it. No, you're not, because you're not alone, family. You have your spiritual team, your guardian angels, your ancestors, the Most High, and all the other spiritual entities working with you. So you're really not alone. There's so much that you should be doing. So it's not an idle time where you even feel you should be feeling lonely, because there's so much. If you find yourself alone, there's something that you still need to do in your alone time. So don't go into these situations needy. Don't go into any community or any relationship needy, family. And let me just hop back to number 2, because this thing about listening. You see, I think a lot of times what got us into trauma bonding, kind of toxic situations, relationships, communities, partnerships, was the fact that we didn't really listen to what people were telling us about who they were. We were so eager, or just so happy or relieved or whatever, to have that relationship or that friendship, that we overlooked a lot of the quote unquote red flags. And so it's very important, family, to listen to what people tell you. And most importantly, listen to who they tell you they are. Listen to who they tell you they are, family. And use that spirit of discernment. Which brings me to the next point. Actually, let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Wake up, Africa! Welcome back, family, to Ask Dr. Mumbi. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. You can always send us your questions, Dr. Mumbi at drmumbishow.com, and we usually pick the question that we see over and over again. This week, it's one of the questions we've been getting a lot is there any advice I can give people as they seek out friendships? A lot of people looking for friends, as they seek to be part of the unity communities and things like that. How do we operate now as chosen ones in that in that realm, in that environment, in kind of that dynamic? What should we be aware of? So I was just listing about 5 things that you should be aware of as you enter relationships as an awakened one. Of course, the first one is you must remain a priority in your life. It's not selfishness, it's actually selflessness. It's to ensure you are only as good to others as you are to yourself. And you have to ensure that you are always in balance, you are always, in a good place. You have to have that self-awareness so that the minute you fall out of balance or the minute you start acting unhealed or some type of way, you're immediately aware of it and you immediately rectify it. Because family, remember, you attract who you are, and sometimes you don't want to allow anything to bring you down, because that will change even the dynamic of who you're attracting, or even the dynamic of the group. I'm going to get into that in a little while. So the first one was self-study, self-priority, self-love, self-awareness at all times. The second one was listen very closely to what people will be telling you, and also what your spiritual team is telling you about people, because people always reveal who they are, family. If you hang out with someone long enough, they will reveal who you are. And it's not a matter of judgment now, because we've all developed certain personality traits, etc., that help us with our journey. And remember, to our spiritual team, this thing of friends and everything doesn't mean as much as it might to your own heart. It's more about fulfilling the spiritual mission. And there is a soul family out there for you. And maybe everyone is still balancing out, healing, etc. So you don't want to be in the wrong soul family, creating karma or, being triggered, etc. So these are just some of the things. Really listen to what people are telling you. Number 3, don't be needy. Don't be desperate, family. Don't be desperate for that relationship. Don't be desperate for those connections, that soul family. I know it's been lonely. I know it's been lonely. I've seen your emails, family, where some of you are like, you've 10 years, 5 years, you haven't had a companion. It's been the same for me, family. Especially when I started to just, when I told my ancestors that I wanted to see the truth, it's been painful. And even this awakening journey, we know you literally lose everything and everyone because you're no longer in that vibration. I mean, it's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to know it. You know what I mean? So don't be needy. What you want is coming to you. And don't be needy to get into a bad situation now because it will hurt more as an awakened one. And that leads me to the fourth point, family, which is like absolutely, absolutely critical. And it's stay in balance. Because remember, the soul families that are coming together now, the soul communities that are coming together now, it's all about us helping one another to maintain a certain vibration. A lot of the people now in the awakened communities, because that's who you'll be attracting, are like you. Some are psychic, some are a little psychic, some are a lot psychic. They're energy readers. These are just the basics that all the awakened ones have, which is a sign that we're creating the world that was and is to come at the same time. But it was like, the reason Babylon had to make our world fall is because we lived, telepathy was about, we lived more in a conscious environment where I can literally feel your thoughts and feel your emotions, just as you can feel my thoughts and feel my emotions. If we're on the same level, if I'm a bit higher, maybe I'll be able to mask it, or you won't be able to fully grasp it. But usually with the people that you're attracting, most of these people are energy readers, they're psychics, so they can literally feel when you're out of balance. They can feel when your vibration is off. So make sure that you're maintaining balance as much as possible. And if the groups or the communities or the people you meet throw you off balance, then limit your interaction. Because I know, us awakened ones, we're not as many. And some of these things are not make or break. They're not, life-threatening. Some of the interaction, the things that we may not like about one another as awakened ones, they're not life-threatening. But anything that is throwing you out of balance is a liability. And you don't have to say, oh, I'll never talk to that person again. We're out of that kind of season. But you have to be discerning about, okay, these kind of people throw me out of balance. But it's like when I see them, they're a reflection, so I can see how far I've gone. So I'll keep them as an acquaintance. We don't need to talk every day. We don't need to hang out. We can even hang out maybe twice a year. And in our hanging out, it will be like an iron sharpening iron situation. That's what they're there for. But you can't be in that iron sharpening iron situation all the time. So then you recognize that and you put that group where it belongs. There are a lot of people who think they're awakened, but they still have unhealed issues, which you may have as well, family. But basically now, when you go out of balance, it will create an imbalance in the group because you're coming together consciously now. You're coming together on a mental level. It's not like your previous relationships where you were coming together physically. Everything was about the material. You were meeting in this material realm and your spiritual life was kind of your secret life. Remember the show I did about your public life, your private life, and your secret life? So now it's like your spiritual life has moved out of your secret life and it's now like your private life. It may become your public life soon. But it's more like, when you get comfortable with it. But right now, it's more like your private life. And so these are the friends and the family that exist in your private life. Therefore, you have to overstand, understand, and understand where you're going to place people in your life. Remember the show I did on Friends, Season, Reason, Lifetime? You have to recognize some people who are going to come into your life are just there for a reason. The reason may be that one time, the reason may be that spiritually, the Most High or your collective ancestors or the spirit of a certain nation wants you to come together for a particular mission. The reason may be to reflect who you are, to be a mirror, to show you, things about yourself that remain unhealed or the next phase of your healing, etc., etc. And you don't need to be around reasoned people all the time. You meet literally when there's a reason. And sometimes that reason is orchestrated spiritually. So you may not talk for 6 months. And then spirit will have you bump into them and you end up having, dinner with them and you accelerate each other. Because with reasoned people, what happens is like you guys will accelerate each other's growths, each other's healings, each other's overstanding, just because you're all vibing on a certain level and you can use that collective vibe to, I think those are the monkeys, they've arrived, they've woken up. You can use that collective vibe, family, to, to speed things up, to take quantum leaps in your overstanding, in your spirituality, in certain gifts, talents, etc., etc. There are also other friends that you will now be meeting who are just there, either for a season, just to help you either acclimatize to or for a location. Maybe they're there to help you acclimatize to the new environment. And this always happens to me. Like whenever I move into a new town or village or city or whatever, and this has been happening ever since I was young, it's like you'll meet people randomly and you'll connect for a season until your energy has settled in that space. But usually you'll meet people who are on the same vibration as you and you'll connect. And sometimes they're just there to help you settle in. Sometimes it's like when you connect, you actually create a grid over that town or that village or that city, a higher grid. So you kind of, together, as you're continuing with your healing journey and your healing mission or whatever, you raise up that city and that town because you're connected. So when you vibe high and they're vibing high, that affects the town and you'll start to see where you are, where you're living start to change. And sometimes they're just there to get you through a particular time. I know a lot of us have been expressing to the ancestors how we want companions, we want a soul family. And so because you're so insistent, this is what I'm hearing the ancestors say, a temporary soul family may be figured out for a season. And of course, as you wait for your lifetime family, as you wait for your lifetime family. And the last point I would give you, family, is make sure that you're involving your spiritual team. You do not walk alone. If you are at this stage of being awakened, then you are very much awakened to the guides, the ancestors, the ancient ones, the deities that move with you. Some of you even know them by name or the names that they had here, But you actually know them. You've established a communication with your spiritual realm, with your spiritual family. And so involve this spiritual family in the process as much as possible. Now, there's nothing I don't do without my spiritual family telling me. I will literally, if I'm invited somewhere, I will literally meditate and ask my spiritual team, what is the purpose of that? There are communities that I was so excited to join. And when I asked my spiritual team, they were like, this is not your community. But I still went ahead and became a part of their group. And as things would have it, it was revealed to me why they were not your community. So make sure, family, that the biggest voice in your head is your spiritual family. Regardless of who you're meeting, regardless of how they make you feel, ask, because they see way ahead. It was like when I moved to Mount Zion, family. That's when I wanted to join this community, and I was told this is not your community. But the whole thing took a year to unravel. And you see, just because I got that message from my spiritual team, it didn't mean abandon it, don't talk to them, keep it moving. But it was just like proceed with caution, knowing that this is not your spiritual family. So figure out why you've been brought together. And in the season that we were friends, that we became a soul family, it was a beautiful season, family. I learned so much about Mwene Nyaga, Mwene Hinya, Gaiwa Kere Nyaga, who is the Most High for us. I learned so much about my heritage that I'd never known. I met so many other Agekoyo, oracles, healers, who I'd never have met. And that relationship was so critical. It was like the steady, it was like the constant flow as I was transforming and healing and doing crazy spiritual battle in that darkest moment. It was the one thing that was kind of steady in my life. And I'll always be grateful for that. And it's like when I returned to Mount Zion for my, summoned by the spirits, when I returned a couple of weeks ago, I reconnected with that community, and it was beautiful. And it was like we energized each other, and they gave me information, I gave them information, they gave me energy, I gave them energy. And I realized they'll always be my family, but they were for that season. The reason my spiritual team told me they weren't my community is because so I wouldn't be changing my life dynamics, choosing to stay there instead of to relocate to somewhere else, as the spiritual team was telling me. Choosing to, making life decisions because I thought now I'd found my soul family, which is what a lot of people would do because it's such a rare thing. And so learn, involve your spiritual family in all your decisions, family, not just in the friends that you're meeting and the new people you're meeting, but in all your decisions. And then learn to interpret what they're telling you, because sometimes it's not doom and gloom. It's over. It's not as cut as dry as they tell you. They may put it in a way using the languages that we know, which makes it sound to you like, oh my God, I have to cut this off, or I'm not supposed to even interact with them. No, sometimes they put it in a way where it's just like, it's a message that you're supposed to interpret, not with maybe the harshness, because you see, we're not used to that straightforward message. But, with that harshness, we have to interpret that maybe if they tell you a certain community is not for you, a certain group is not for you, it's not that you should, it may be that they're not your life partners. So don't invest as much, as I just said. But there's a reason that you guys have been brought together, or you've been brought together for a season, which could totally impact and transform the rest of your life. So learn to hear your spiritual team and also to interpret their messages. And I guess the absolute last one I would add, family, is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid that you're going to meet toxic people again who are going to try and take advantage of you, or do this to you, or do that to you. What you went through in your trauma stage, in that previous book of life, was to prepare you for now, was to prepare you for the fun times that we're supposed to be having now. And I'm actually going to do an extra show, a separate show, family, on what it feels like to be living in the new earth, because that's where I'm at. I'll totally share. Now, especially when I was able to go to the shrine, I was really able to differentiate the two. So I'll definitely do a separate show on that. But don't be afraid. You have all the tools. You have your spiritual team right beside you. So never be afraid about meeting people, afraid about interacting, putting yourself out there, interacting. Because you will know. You're never going to go back into that abusive relationship unless you haven't healed that. And you will know whether something is for you or not. So trust yourself. Trust yourself, family. Trust how you feel. Trust your decision about whether this is good for you and whether this is not. Trust yourself to know whether something should be avoided, tolerated, or accepted. You're not your old you. You're a brand new, beautiful version of yourself. And you're still getting to know yourself, family. You're still getting to know yourself. So, of course, to always treat yourself with love. But trust the decisions that come from your soul. Chuko pamoja.